Welcome aboard. Thank you for making the time to join us in the course of this news review. Joining us shortly, Kwame Asah-Asante, Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, who is with the Political Science Department at University of Ghana, as well as the Institute for European Studies. He joins the conversation as we get into the papers and talk about all the topical matters in Ghana and beyond. Let's quickly get into it, but let me say a very good morning to Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. Always refreshing having you, Doc.
Good morning, my brother.
And your shirts, where do you get them from? Always very colorful. I think you should connect me, Doc.
Why not? Why not? I have a tailor friend at Akropong who does it for me.
Akropong, yes. I see.
Oh, yes,
I
yes,
see.
yes.
I see. The Akropong connection. Well, thank you for joining us for another morning. We'll get into the papers shortly, but a few things I'm familiar with. Coup d'etats. You heard, your colleague in those circles, academic circles recently, Professor Kwesi Enning, suggest that by the middle of next year, we would have had at least 2 more coups in the sub-region. Colonel Festus Abuaje, retired, has shared, thoughts akin to what Professor Enning is saying. Many of your compatriots are saying West African leaders specifically are not doing the right thing. Here we are with Guinea-Bissau getting right on the cusp of a coup, foiled attempt, but some dead and all of that. Why is...
About 2-3 solutions. One, we need to change some of the ECOWAS protocol on elections, where we change constitution for a 3rd time and allow soldiers to come in and take over the administration of civilian government. That is one. 2, we need to strengthen the frontiers of good governance in West Africa, because if you look at the justification for coups, they are born out of what? Maladministration, corruption, and all the evils of democracy. So we need to up our game in terms of good governance. We try to be accountable as possible, transparent as possible, and also respond to the needs of the people. And of course, fight corruption head on, not to pay any lip service. And then the 3rd one is that we need to always continue to educate and inform our people. I'm talking about the citizenry of every state, that their destinies are in their own hands, and that when they get opportunity to change government, they need to throw away government that are incompetent, that are insensitive, government that are more, authoritarian and the like. They don't need to exchange their votes with money, with goodies, and what have you, because that would define their destiny. When we get these basics right, I'm sure we'll be able to stem the tide. But of course, if the going get tough for us, why not? We can also call for assistance from international community. One would say that, why are you an independent state and you still need the support of Western world and Western institutions? Right. Let us remember that in spite of our independence and the freedoms that we enjoy, we still go for them in terms of loans, in terms of financial bailouts and what have you. So we are still, dependent on these institutions and countries for our survival. So if the need be, why not?
Well, interestingly, Guinea-Bissau is a former Portuguese colony, and they are one of the poorest countries in the world. In fact, they are saddled with a lot of foreign debt. And I guess that has been one of the crucial matters that people have spoken about, that not justify coup d'etats, but sort of give some credence when the people are suffering and they feel that there is no legitimate way of changing governments. It appears this is becoming fashionable for military leaders or coup makers to step in. Economically speaking, what would you proffer that West African leaders start looking at to curb the menace? Because there would be no justification if economically our countries are in a good stead.
Yes. If you look at a theory that guides military adventurism, it's about civilian regime performance. Right. And one basic factor under this theory is that when there is poverty, when there is impoverishment, when people can't find jobs and all that, then you give cause for people to worry. And that any savior, in quotes, that comes in, the public is ready to welcome that person. Right. So on that note, I believe that we need to step up our game in terms of what? Building a very solid economic base for our people so that people can find jobs, people can find means of livelihood, and people can what? Get gainful employment to be able to live their lives. Other than that, we are going to be, we are going to struggle to deal with this issue, which is gradually becoming albatross around our necks.
But come to think of it, a curious thought, Dr. Asante. In the 60s, starting right here in Ghana, and what happened, that putsch that ousted Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, then the domino effect across the region, Nigeria and other countries. We had our own turmoil in the 60s, 70s, and 80s when it comes to coup d'etats. Then we had a pretty quiet, let's say, 2 to 3 decades. And then it started getting fashionable after 2000 again, 2000s, And here we are again with another wave, if you like, of coup d'etats. Is there any connection? I mean, apart from these matters, we're talking of the economic issues and like in Burkina Faso, the failure to deal with terrorist groups. But are there undercurrents that allow for these to happen from time to time?
Yes, apart from what we have said, we have also not been vigilant enough. Why am I saying that? Sometimes you ask yourself, why are people mishandling the administration of the state and civilians are sitting unconcerned? We have not been vigilant enough. But let us remember that vigilance is the price of liberty. So we need to continue to educate our people to be vigilant, speak louder about issues that concern them, and always trying to criticize government when there is a need to do that. We more often than not tend to pamper government, tend to, as it were, support administration of political parties unnecessarily. We tend to also be moved by political tradition that, this is a political party that I support. Whether they are administering well or not, I'm not going to change my position and I'm not going to say anything ill about the government. Once we do that, we set the stage for chaos, and the results will definitely affect our livelihoods.
Well, here we are, and as a region, a sub-region, and as a country, I guess there are a lot of lessons to learn. But let's get into the papers now, if you will indulge me. The Daily Graphic, I'm going to start with. UTAG unfair, that's according to government. The story is on page 13. Let me just give you some details of that because I definitely want you to comment on this story. And Nuke's just quick resolution of impasse. So according to this story on page 13, the government has described the demands and the posture of the University Teachers Association of Ghana as unfair to parents and students. It emphasized that on June 16 last year, the government and UTAG signed a memorandum of understanding satisfactorily resolving issues relating to the conditions. At the time, as per the MOU of June 2021, was the matter of research allowances. Now, in an interview with the Daily Graphic, a highly placed source at the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations explained that the negotiations, which started on a list of COSs in 2019, had a general framework agreed as all non-payroll items such as marking allowances and invigilation allowances. It goes on to talk about the base pay, and Nuke's now entering to call on government and you, the striking university lecturers, to get back to post. UTAG is being unfair. That's what government is saying. Don't you feel you are being unfair to some extent, UTAG members? Doc.
What do you expect government to say? Leave the very profession that gives them what livelihoods. Do you think so? And what is more is that we don't only teach students, but we teach our family members, friends, and loved ones. So we are also concerned about this. But right. As I have already said, that agreement is agreement. What happens to the 2013 agreement that was reached? Has government been very honorable in that regard? So if you hear statements like this from government, as a political scientist, I can understand. These are some of the things you have to say and save your face from the public. But the stark reality is on paper and is dawning on the state right now.
When you say these are some of the things you have to say to save face, are you suggesting that government, one, hasn't done the right thing, and they're just trying to create the impression that you are to blame for this, but in fact, they are to blame? Is that what you're saying?
posture has not been,
Right.
welcoming.
Prof. Jumpo said that.
That people that even government send to such programs sometimes don't have the capacity to speak the way they ought to. And sometimes we have also heard from our leadership that government, drag its feet in all this. All that I'm saying is that if you think the UTAC have no business to do what they are doing, do you think that as a body, legitimate as a test and very respectable one like this, will take this position just to be outside the classroom and then create problem for everybody? Let us be honest to ourselves. Political leadership requires a certain level of honesty. You need to be very honest in things that you say so that at least when you have a concern, people can appreciate and understand you. But if it's going to be, be guided sincerely, that they will be able to find an amicable solution to this, so that the strike and the ones that are happening within the labor front in other sectors of the economy will be a thing of the past. I am hopeful.
You're hopeful, but the 21-day window is almost at its end. And in fact, some of your students, even at the University of Ghana, have started heading home because their parents are saying they are in school, they are not studying anything, they are wasting money, so to speak. And some of them have started making their way home. Do you have hope? Because the most recent deliberations that you've had with the employer and even the NLC have not amounted to much. Do you think, honestly, that you as members can scrape through?
Whether the schools will shut down or not, I don't have a hand in that, and I have no control in that area. I have been a student who also experienced that in 1994 for 8 months. I'm not saying that that's going to be the case. But if that is going to be the case, then it's the decision by the various universities. But on a more serious note, what I want to say is that, look, I don't think government will allow the strike to drag on so that teachers and students will be out of classroom. I'm not sure that is the interest of government. That is why I'm saying that it is. I am very hopeful.
But what if genuinely government cannot give you what you're looking for? Then that is exactly what is going to happen. If government cannot meet your demands, some teaching in school. If government can't meet your demands, it means it is going to happen.
Let us know that I'm not one of the leaders of UTAC. I'm speaking as a teacher of the university. But my view is that if government is able to sit at the table with UTAC, they will find a amicable solution to this problem. I'm not sure this is very daunting. There's a way out to every problem, including this one.
Just to run by you as we move the conversation forward, yesterday on our sister station, Joy Prime Morning, they had a discussion with Philip Christian Ama, President, University Students Association of Ghana. We are not going to sit down for the universities to be closed. Not every student is being taken care of by their guardians or parents. There are students who are working and fending for themselves. He also says, our position is that we have paid school fees and we demand to be taught. How do you respond to that in just some 15 seconds?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we are in this quagmire, but I believe that it is a decision worth pursuing. Why am I saying that? We also have paid fees as parents who have wards and children in the university. But except that we need to also fight for the little guys with parents, with students and all that. But we also have to sympathize with ourselves that whatever we need in terms of our remuneration, we are giving that so that we all get to classroom and start a new life.
Let's dig into some more stories. And on page 20, Asin North MP dragged to the Supreme Court. I'm talking about Mr. James Jachikwason. Apparently, the service that was meant for him was going to be communicated through Parliament, the Speaker. Now, the Right Honourable Speaker is not at post, and now the directive is that he be served personally, that it be served on his person. But what I want to find out from you is not all the how to, but it has to do with the timing. And some of those in the minority suggest that just because of the e-levy, which this administration is trying to push through, of course, with the Speaker not at post, you have parity, 137 members apiece. If one of them steps in as Speaker, like Joe Osei-Wusu would do, it would leave them with a lower number from 138 in the caucus. And so this is just an attempt to water down the numbers of the NDC in Parliament so they can push the e-levy through. I mean, the timing, what do you think about it?
I'm not seized with all the facts in this case, but what I can say is that if you look at court processes, I don't think it has a particular time frame within which they are served on people. So me not being a lawyer, I will not venture into that area that much. So I will be pleased if you can skip this and move into other areas that I'm more comfortable.
Anyway, it was just about the timing and not necessarily the legal processes, but whether, I mean, this could have the intent of trying to score political points. But I concede, and we shall move on from there. Here's another area of interest in the Daily Graphic. 10-year study on corruption prevalence, in fact, is the banner headline. Unregulated party financing to blame. And we are going back to the CPI, the Corruption Perceptions Index, and Ghana scoring 43. And this is one of the points that the CPI made forcefully, that we ought to look at party financing, corruption when it comes to campaigning, and again about tweaking our constitution. Is it high time on the back of this latest report from Transparency International and the GII in Ghana that we took a look at this, especially in this context, political party financing? What do you think?
Oh, I have said this time and again. And if you look at the work that the Department of Political Science have done with the law faculty over the years, Professor Kwame Ninsing and Professor Kofi Kumadu and their colleagues spent a whole lot of time looking at how we can get away with this type of problem. But the nation at a point in time, it is true that if we want to fight corruption, one clear way to deal with it is how we fund political parties. This is so because what the law prescribes is not what we do. We have all manner of people who support political parties and fund them. But when it comes to the kind of reward that they get in state and political parties, for that matter, hypocritically will always come out and tell us that they will fight corruption. They will fight corruption head on. I am afraid they are not going to do that. It is just a political gimmick. Because if you look at the factors that are responsible for voter choices in this country, the third is corruption. Everybody knows that. So political parties will always come out, deceive people into believing that they are in to fight corruption, only to come to office and do a different thing. Over the years, me as a student of politics, I've observed with much difficulty that we are not ready to fight corruption. Why am I saying that? We have used all manner of methods, imprisonment, we have used jingles, slogans, we have used all manner of means to deal with corruption, but they are very ineffective. The simple reason is that political leadership lacked political will to deal with cases of corruption from within their parties, and that is the bane that this country is facing. It's very, very unfortunate. But you know, one of the evils of democracy is how you deal with an age-long problem. If you are not able to do democracy such as the one we have. But I believe that going forward, if we want to still consolidate and firm the edges of this democracy, one task that is ahead of all of us is to what? Work and fight corruption head on and stop paying lip service to the fight. If we are able to do this, then we can breathe a sigh of relief and get our game in place.
Speaking of democracy, which is what you ended on, Jose on Facebook watching us live, you say this thing called democracy is not working. There's also Pablo who says, I'm watching live from Nyamiso Bisuman, who is watching live in the Kintampo North District. Thank you all for doing the watching. In sports, wrapping up with the Daily Graphic, Senegal, Burkina Faso clash in KG semis tonight. Let's do the Ghanaian Times newspaper now. Child labor on cocoa farms, 33,180 children in danger. That's according to a Child Rights International report. And here's what it says. If you cast your mind back, you would realize that by Child Rights International, and they say a total of 33,180 children from some cocoa communities in the country are at risk of becoming child laborers, according to a child labor monitoring report by the Child Rights International. Out of the number, 64.1% are males, with the remaining 35.9% being females. Child rights and how we deal with them, basically, in our country. How much of a worry is it for you, Doc? And are we making enough strides? What do you want to see?
It's a worrying situation because when I was a student at Ghana Institute of Journalism, I was the president for International Journalists for Children's Rights. So I've been at the forefront of children's affairs over the years. And then when I became an editor of a newspaper, I took the mantle and also fought until I left the scene. It's very unfortunate that we are where we are now. I admit that institutions such as Child's Rights International and other allied organizations have done their best, but we are still having problems with this. All that is very unfortunate. We need to continue to give education to farmers that there is no point employing or abusing children on their farms. You need to hire qualified laborers to work for you if you really want to stay in that business. And then we should also go ahead to enforce the rules regarding abuse of children in this light. More often than not, we are quick as a state to come out with laws that regulate the lives and welfare of children. But we are not, the difficulty is. But I believe that we need more advocacy, more rhetorics, aim at strengthening the institutions to be able to fight this canker in our society. It's unfortunate because some of these things are very, very injurious to the lives of children. And let us remember that in the Constitution, the decision that we take about children should always be in the best interest of our children. Is that what we are doing now? We as a state must bow our head in shame that we have left children in such a sorrowful situation and only come back to shed crocodile tears about how they are being abused. If we really want to enforce the rules regarding abuse of children, we'll be able to do that. Why are we reneging on our promise to do this for the sake of motherland? I am sorry that we need to take very bold decisions and enforce the law rigidly without fear or favor. This is the only way to go, and this is how a message can be sent to those who are having a field day in this area of production in our country.
We need to be stern. Positive thoughts there. Republic Press newspaper now. Akufo-Addo seeking to use judiciary to prevent Asin North MP from voting. That's according to Region Today. And McDonald's woes deepen as GACL, that's the Ghana Airport Company Limited, shuts down private jet terminal. Interesting, the details coming from the Ghana Airport Company Limited on the back of this. Of course, yesterday we had that letter from McDan Aviation saying they were shutting down operations till certain measures had been put in place. But let's go back to the e-levy. Martin Amidu jumps into e-levy fight. He is accusing government of arrogance, impunity, and abuse of power. And Esibe Yeboah, burst MPP bubble, says e-levy is not the way. Just a quote of what, a citation of what he says. The former New Patriotic Party Member of Parliament for New Joab and South and a one-time chair of the Finance Committee of Parliament, Dr. Mark Esibe Yeboah, has urged government to think through its decision to shun the International Monetary Fund in the face of the country's dwindling barometer yesterday, the CDD, which points to the fact that about 80%, it's fallen from about 90% between 2011 and 2013. But in 2019, we have about 72 to 79% of Ghanaians who are willing to pay taxes, but they want to see more from establishment or government. Or should we, in this instance, go back to the status quo, what it has been always, the IMF? What is your quick take on that?
I have observed, as a student of political economy, with a lot of pain, that as soon as there are little problems within the finance in tears. Why am I saying that? Because time and again, we realize that you get a regime that promises to do the basics right, and then we get our economic, policies right. But a very little problem, then we quickly run to the solution to this problem. But what I can say is that, look, you cannot govern any society without finance. You need to concentrate on the extractive capacity of the state, where you generate resources to run the affairs of the state. But it shouldn't only be on taxation, because some of the taxes become nuisance and affect even stability of the state. So whilst we want to pursue this agenda, we must open ourselves up in terms of what? The way we think, to look for other avenues where we can create wealth and make our country better. Let us look at the fact that this mobile phones to create something that we can leverage on to build our society. That is the way to go. There are a lot of things that we can do in this country. Look at even value addition of what? Raw primary commodities that we send to the outside market. Can't we add values here? Taking cocoa alone, visited Creek and found a lot of things we have done with cocoa. What has happened to that dream? Are we throwing that one away and going for this short route, which is creating all manner of what? Problem for our society? There are a lot that we can do if we open ourselves up for discussion and tell the public so that we all can come to the rescue of the government, than we always charting a path which is so difficult and doesn't create any breathing space for us. It's very, very unfortunate. There are a lot of ways that we can do to create jobs. Let us look at what issue of even training people and sending them outside for export in terms of what? Human resource export. And we can generate resources from that. We can also expand, the economy by adding more traditional commodities into the system and then see how best they can also fly within the system. There are a lot. And there are a lot of people. This country is endowed with what? Human resource. That if government, decide to what? Open its arms and allow people to come in, they will be able to what? Proffer the needed solution that we can depend on to run the affairs of the state.
Doc, let's wrap with these 2 points very quickly. The first one has to do with fuel prices. And in the final newspaper, 3 months that we published on My Joy Online, and it talks about the PSRL, the National Petroleum Authority, indicating its decision to restore the price stabilization levy. Of course, we know what this means. It's going to affect fuel prices, which already COPEC and other institutions or think tanks are talking about, getting an uptick. With all of these happening, it appears we're in dire financial straits because even the very things that were cushioning us are now being taken away again, and the pinch is going to be felt even more in terms of fuel pricing.
Yeah, the pot is not out of the woods yet. I am surprised that we still have this problem on our hands. We need to do the needful to be able to address this issue head on. If we need to pay realistic prices for the things that we consume, why not? But you see, always you see politics rearing its ugly heads in that type of business, where we want to, reduce prices of commodities and then making sure that we live up to a certain expectation that we don't have the resources to support and defend at all times. That is unfortunate. That's propaganda, and then look at the realities of the situation and deal with it head on. That is the only way to go, because every year we get, or every time we get this issue, cheap political point, you see politicians coming in to tell us what we cannot support, tell us what we cannot fund, and at the end of the day, when the reality is done on us, we want to come out with realistic prices. We should shy away from that type of business and come to terms with what the realities of the time.
Doc, let's put a full stop to the conversation at this juncture. We're very grateful that you've joined us for another morning, and we wish you a beautiful day. But he joined us for this news review. Coming up next, we have sports, and after that, we get into our big stories for the day. Stay with us. We'll be right back.